Welcome to the SIWIKE Podcast, the only podcast that shares the stuff you didn't know you needed to know about jobs, careers, and life. The SIWIKE Podcast, the stuff I wish I knew earlier.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the SIWIKE Stuff I Wish I Knew Earlier podcast. We're here with one of our new guest hosts, Mahima. How are you doing today, Mahima?
Amazing. Excited to be here with you and just share with all these amazing people. Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome, and love the energy. And Mahima comes to us with a background in like purpose and mindset and some fashion a little before that. But I'd love to, if you shared a little bit about what you're up to now, and then we'll rewind and get started with you as a kid. So what are you up to these days?
What I'm up to is I empower people who are feeling stuck with what is my purpose? What do I really want to do with the rest of my life? Am I even happy? I have a successful job. I have a marriage. I have kids. I have a house. I have this. I have that. But something isn't connecting inside of me that's giving me the joy, the pleasure, the fun, and the happiness that I know I deserve to be feeling and experiencing. So it's really about the successful person who, has it's maybe not the greatest success of life, but a lot of success and feels like there's more inside of me and I just feel stuck.
That's awesome.
I help them to untap even more brilliance and really learn how to enjoy life, because it sounds like something obvious, but I had no idea how to be happy until I learned it. So I help people to get their PhD in how to be happy. Sexually, spiritually, financially, how to be able to enjoy it all and be guilt, shame, negative free, right?
That's amazing. Yeah, and we're looking forward to diving deep into all of that. But it sounded like you didn't start that way, so because you learned it along the way. And I'd love if you shared a little bit about yourself as a kid. So what was an early childhood memory? What was Mahima like growing up?
Mahima used to use movement, also known as dance, to connect with spirit, to escape the tragicness of my environment. That was a superpower that transported me to a place of lightness, of ecstasy, of bliss. And I danced a lot as a kid. I danced, I probably danced before I could walk. I could imagine that I was already kind of dancing. So that's what I, recall doing the most of in my childhood. Being brought up in Zimbabwe, it's apartheid, it's poverty, it's colonialism, being, it was a colony from England. It's an education system that I call it creating sausages. It's like sausage factory, right? So, and I think many education systems, even till today, is that. It doesn't play to the strengths of individual kids that have certain gifts and talents that are not their strengths. So if you are not in the typical intelligence, what is expected, that you easily learn how to read and write, and you easily learn maths and science, and that, you're in trouble if you're a more creative kid, if you're more if you're more with hands meant to be doing something, right? An artist, some sort of craftsman, and your skills are somewhere else, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. So school, luckily for me, I was pretty okay, like kind of like good at school, not like a genius, but I could manage. And so, I just recall living in a state of, I come from physical, emotional abuse, right? Heavy physical and emotional abuse due to the negative environments that my parents were brought up in. That's how they were treated. And so you just, if you've been hurt, you hurt others, right? And so I think that a lot of people don't realize how much of how you're showing up in this world is through your conditioning, what you were taught at school, what you were taught through your society. If you brought in up as a Jewish person, as a a Christian, as a Muslim, as a, whatever. These are all influences
Sure.
that create a certain thought pattern and way of thinking and being. So I was brought up as Roman Catholic. I was brought up in poverty. I was brought up in abuse, and had to find a way to escape all of that later on in my life.
Yeah, sound well. That part doesn't necessarily sound amazing, but obviously the escape part is the amazing part of it. And I'd love if you shared a little bit more about like kind of that the journey and some of the influences along the way. So obviously you have religions, some of the environmental ones, but how about people along the way? Were there parents, family members that you aspired to? I know you did a stint in like fashion. Was there kind of a push towards there, or were you kind of guided towards the typical STEM, like the doctor, lawyer, accountant, engineer that most parents want their kids to do? What were some of the influences along the way?
Okay, so the influences were that when I was 14, I was discovered by a
Okay.
modeling agency in a school play. We did Cats, and I
Okay.
think I was Rumpel-Teaser or something like that
Okay.
in Cats. Okay, and I was wearing this like leotard, all-in-one leotard with the whole cat face and everything.
Yeah.
And somehow my teacher, her sister, was head of one of the top modeling agencies in Zimbabwe.
Okay.
So she came to the school play, saw me there, pulled me out, and I started modeling. That modeling career led me to be able to start making my own money. Even with 14, 15, I was making, honestly, more money than my parents were making in a whole year just through my early modeling career. So that kind of got me onto another trajectory. As a creative, meaning dance, fashion, just, came easily to me. I worked inside of this modeling agency, also had a boutique, one of the top boutiques in Zimbabwe. I started buying fabric and designing with the head fabric, with the head designer of the store.
Right.
So I'd go around with her and help her and put influences and ideas in there. So that's how I started into the fashion thing. And so, yeah, I've always loved fashion. I think fashion is a way to express yourself creatively. And I think creativity is an extremely important part of life. And too many people don't realize that even something as simple as expressing yourself with fashion can give a lot to your creative capacity of playing, being playful, and not taking yourself so seriously.
For sure. I think that's amazing. And I'm wondering if you can kind of dig deep a little bit in that one and tell us a little bit about that kind of discovery, because not everyone gets discovered, right? So as a 14-year-old before that part, like what were you thinking about your life would be? Was there any kind of aspirations there? Did you see yourself as like an actress, someone in theater, and then suddenly someone comes in and says, hey, you have a natural talent, so let's get in that. So I'd love you walk us through a little bit of that mindset in between that part.
Absolutely. So I started ballet with 6 years old.
Okay.
I started dancing with, when I was even before that. So people always knew that I was some kind of a performer, right? Like, and
Okay.
at parties, it was, hey, dance for us. And so I was always on stage and doing Michael Jackson and performing for the family. So definitely, I think I have this performance gene that was just inside of me. And that's why, I became interested in dance. I don't know if you know that show Fame. It was
Sure.
a big show in the 80s and so forth. So
Yeah.
I loved that show. I loved Flash. I loved everything that was with dancing and movies and John Travolta and that whole scene. So yeah, I actually was in performance. Once I got discovered, I started being able to do performances in the top theaters in Zimbabwe. I got to do some performances, and so yeah, I think it was always in my trajectory to be involved in some level of performance.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess you're doing a little bit about that now, so it hasn't completely gone away. You might not be dancing on stage. Well, maybe you are a little bit
I
as well.
do.
I've
I
seen some
actually do
video.
dance. I do. I incorporate movement into
Mhm.
what I teach because I think it's very important. I don't call it dance. I call it conscious movement.
Okay.
And so yeah, if you come to an event, there's a lot of movement. There's a lot of dynamic energy that involves getting outside of your comfort zone and really raising your vibrational frequency. I think the body is a vehicle through which we feel and experience life. Energy with when your body is out of whack, you are out of whack.
Sure.
So learning how to live in an abundant body, meaning energy abundance, health abundance, emotional abundance, being able to feel rich emotions, bliss, ecstasy, joy, laughter,
Hmm.
um, explosive energy. I call it the warrior energy, right?
Right.
That allows you to feel this like real burst of energy that you can access and then pour into your projects. Passion, creativity, all flows through the body. And we need to open those channels. A lot of people don't have open channels in the body to
Right.
receive energy. We've become talking heads, and our
Mhm.
thoughts are not even in our body. A lot of
Right.
us are, that's why we say we can't meditate because we feel fragmentation.
Right.
So if you take your mind and start to focus it in on the body, yeah, focusing your mind on your breath, focusing your mind on listening when you move, what do you feel, what are you experiencing? Suddenly you start to understand that the real power over your mind lies in your ability to control your physical body and
Mm.
experience more energy inside of your body.
That's amazing. And I'd love if you share a little bit about the journey to kind of learn all those things, because those things aren't taught in school. And while you're like modeling and doing fashion, that's probably not part of the curriculum either. So I'd love it.
Definitely.
Yeah, if you
Yeah,
walk us through kind of like your journey from fashion, then you started like designing and things like that, and then what ultimately led to kind of the whole mindset shift or that realization. How was that journey?
I was 23 years old when I had like I call it an awakening in my
Okay.
first ever meditation where I learned how to actually experience myself as
Okay.
opposed to just being in my head thinking about this or that or the other. I actually experienced expansion, safety,
Mm.
grounding, peace, inner peace, stillness. So something happened to shift my consciousness, and it was literally like a bomb went off inside of my mini world,
Wow.
and and yeah, and
It,
inside of that explosive awakening, the result was a deep stillness that I'd
mm.
never experienced before in my life.
That's amazing. And I'd love if you bring us up to that point, because was that like the first meditation session and then suddenly boom, or like
Yeah.
were you meditating for like years on end and that was like a coping mechanism to help, or like what was that process to get to that kind of awakening and expansion?
It was my first meditation and then boom. But what people need to understand about why
Wow.
this was so effective, it was because I was in a group meditation with over
Okay.
1,000 people meditating.
Okay.
Yeah. So when that happens, whether you're 10 people, 20 people, 30 people, when people gather, it creates an energy. That's why
Mm.
people love concerts. Yeah,
Right.
because they get to be part of the high of all of these people coming together and focusing on a single point, which is the music, right? And everyone being in that symbiosis. So when you gather with people and meditate, it opens up portals that allow you to drop into spaces that you wouldn't otherwise be able to drop into on your own because
Right.
you simply wouldn't have the energetic capacity to open those portals. Yeah. Now I'm not saying it cannot happen or has
Sure.
never happened that somebody by themselves opened a portal, right? But often even people who get insights join then other groups and then they start being able to be together with others and understand more about what's gone on, what has happened to them, right? The
Yeah.
awakening.
Yeah. And that's amazing. And so first meditation, and you have this kind of epiphany, this awakening. Was there like a call to join this 1,000-person meditation system? Because again, the link from fashion design modeling to meditation is not like 100%
100%.
of
I
it. So what
believe
was that
it.
process to like, register and get into that session or whatever
Yeah,
happened?
I believe it was my app. I believe that there are things in life that are going to happen to you.
Okay.
They're part of your story. It's like
Mm.
it's like a life blueprint. For
Okay.
example, your death date, I
Mm.
think is a predetermined. I think it's
Mm.
predetermined. I think
Okay.
you get it when you come in to this body.
Okay.
There's a framework that of things that will take place. For example, being able to have a child or not being able to have a child.
Mm.
I think, or having a life-changing accident that where you lose your legs or something. I think there's certain things that are just part of a person's journey for whatever reason that
Mm.
we haven't figured out yet. We do not know the why. Yeah,
Mm.
why is somebody born in Zimbabwe in apartheid, in poverty, living in a hut? I did not live in a hut in Africa, but my grandfather did, and even my
Sure.
mother in the very very beginning of her life, was part of the hut in Africa, no running water experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you have like people that are born in Buckingham Palace,
Mm.
right? As with blue blood and royalty and private jets and the chefs. Like why is that? So there is a mystery to life that has not yet been solved even by science. Why
Mm-hmm.
do we have these things? And I believe that there are certain things that will happen to you that are part of your story. Nobody knows why. I was meant to find meditation, and
Mm.
meditation was meant to find me. It is abstract how I went from Zimbabwe to India.
Okay.
Short story is, I got divorced. I was shattered. A friend who'd been to India advised me to go there. For whatever reason, I was able to say yes, bought a one-way ticket, and I was sitting in an ashram in India from Africa, which is the furthest place in the 90s, where there's no
Sure.
internet, there's no information that could carry you over there. It was extremely random. But finding meditation was like a dolphin that was stranded on the beach, and then you push the dolphin back into the ocean,
Right.
and the ocean and the dolphin find each other again, and it's just like, yes, I'm alive. Yeah. And that was me with meditation. I just
Right.
dived straight in. It was just, we found each other, and it was love at first breath. So, I immediately stopped modeling because I felt like the modeling world was all about negativity. You were never
Mm.
good enough. You were never thin enough. You were never beautiful enough. It was just all actually quite a negative world. And I still believe
Mm.
it has a huge negative influence on women. Um, the images that they project, the fact that you go into most department stores and see 12, 13, 14-year-olds being paraded in these, fashion pictures. It's
Sure.
literally young children, right? And it's getting younger and younger. Apparently, they, used to be 12, 13, 14, but now it's maybe 8, 9, 10. I don't know. It's
Wow.
literally insane. And they have in the windows the mannequin. My arm, is the size of the leg of the
Right.
mannequin, and so it's just this constant, putting images into women's mind. If you watch movies, it's the same thing.
Sure.
If you notice the heroine or the hero female is always super thin, like
Mm-hmm.
unhealthily thin. So yeah, there's a lot of things in life that do not support well-being of young girls. And I mean, now it's getting just more and more that they want breast jobs, they want lips puffed up. It's just getting more and more distorted in terms of
Right.
what is beauty in the world, right? And it's super sad. It's a super sad thing to watch the lack of promoting of natural beauty and what it really means to be in a feminine body.
Yeah.
So, it was very clear to me after my awakening that I needed to be out of this industry. And, I got into the personal growth, well-being industry because it just, felt that that's where I'm meant to grow and make a difference in my life first. I worked on myself first, and then I started teaching others what I learned about being empowered and feeling good about yourself.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I totally agree with you that, I mean, a lot of this body image things are so challenging. And it's good that a lot more folks are talking about it, which I think is a positive. But there's a lot to go, right? A long way to go in order to get to where we should be. And I'd love if you shared a little bit, okay, you have this awakening, and do you go back to Zimbabwe and then tell everybody, hey, now I'm going to start this whole life coaching or finding your purpose journey, write books and be a speaker and all that sort of stuff? Or what was that process or the conversations like with the folks around you?
Okay, so that definitely was not how it went down, because, as I said, there wasn't even internet at the time
Right.
that I was going through this trip. I did go back to Zimbabwe I loved being in India for like 8 months, going away to Zimbabwe for 2 months, going back to India for like 9, 10 months, going to New York for 3, 4 months, going back to India for 11 months, and then going to Canada for 2, 3 months. So I became a global citizen where I was checking my options out. I was learning about how do I bring this amazing world of inner growth and self-development to this other crazy world where that's not the main thing. Because when you're in India, you're surrounded by that energy. It's very easy to be blissful, to feel in that highly activated space of inner peace. But then when you come into the normal Western world, the focus isn't on that. The focus is on on being miserable, if I can put it in blunt terms, okay,
Yeah.
and never feeling satisfied with whatever you have. You're never smart enough, you're never thin enough, you're never good enough, it's never enough. You achieve a whole bunch of stuff and you still feel frustrated and you want to achieve more. And it's just an endless wanting and desiring. Yes, you have a great relationship, but it's not great enough. It needs to be better and it needs to get better and more and more. So yeah, I saw it took a while for me before I could accept that my destiny was to teach people. My teacher recognized it after he met me after 5 minutes. He said, "You're going to teach other people inner peace and you're going to travel all over the world doing it." So he already saw that in me. Maybe he planted the seed in me, Did he see it or did he plant the seed? Who knows? But it came together. And then when he died, my teacher died in 1997, I decided that it was time for me to step up and teach. I went to Bali and I started doing my first meditation session over there. And then from that meditation session in Bali, I got invited all over Europe. I was invited to France, to Italy, to Germany, to Switzerland, to Austria. And people were inviting me to teach meditation. And that's how my journey started as a guide, teacher, mentor.
That's amazing. I'd love if you kind of take us back to that first meditation session and maybe the days, weeks leading up to it. How was that experience? Was this something where like you were just so guided that I know exactly what to do, or was there like nervousness, imposter syndrome? You're putting yourself in the shoes of your teacher, right, and things like that. So, what were some of the things that were going on in your head as you were kind of undertaking that? It seems like a fairly pivotal part of your career journey.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, I think when you do something for the first time, you're always going to feel like, you're not normal if you don't feel nervous and feel like, do I even know what I'm doing? Is this going to work? Are people going to laugh at me? Do I look ridiculous? I think that's all normal stuff to just have doubts in whether you can do something if you've never done it before, right? But I just took the lead of just being a messenger to the teachings that I'd been learning, studying very intensively for many years. So that gave me an anchor of of ease, which, so I could switch out of my mind that was like, you can't do this, blah, 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 into no, this is my destiny. This is exactly who I'm meant to be. And this feels absolutely right. And obviously, I must have done something right because of all the invitations that I just got just like that through saying yes to my first meditation session in Bali. It mushroomed into many invitations. So, I had already many people always asking me, what are you, what you smoking, what you on, your energy's amazing. Okay. And I'd be like, hey man, this is just natural high. It's just enjoying life. Right. So yeah, no, I feel like that was, it's all people have often, even till today, respond to my energy. Right.
Right.
If I walk into a space, there's something about my frequency. And that's the work that I've done on myself in clearing my energy frequency and understanding how to radiate, how to, calm a space, how to be a magician inside of the space and, create a portal for people to be able to experience something more than what they usually are experiencing. Right. So I think it's a gift. I have a gift. And I didn't just have it. I've had to nurture this gift. Being a teacher, being a trainer is you develop. I've been developing this since I'm 26, 27 years old, right? I started teaching with 27, 26. I started teaching and now I'm 52. So for many years, I've been, learning how to help people get into faster and faster states of inner peace. When I say faster and faster, it's not because, I think you need speed there, but it was easy for me. First ever meditation, boom. So I believe that it does need a lot of time to open that portal. What takes time is to practice keeping that portal open.
Right. Yeah. And I'm wondering if you can share a little bit about like the work that you did on yourself, because you mentioned a few times that there's a lot that you did. And was it just like the other times where like you just showed up and boom, it works, boom, it's amazing? Or were there some struggles just like, okay, it's just not happening. Like, is this how it's supposed to be, or is it something else? Tell us a little bit about that work that you did on yourself, if you can share.
I'm still working on myself. There is not a day that goes by that you stop working on yourself. Somebody asked the Dalai Lama once, do you still get angry? And he said, does a dog bark? So, you know what I mean? I thought that's such a great answer because I think people have false ideas of working on yourself means that you're gonna wake up one day and say, I'm fixed. Oh, look at me, I'm fixed. I have no more problems. No, life is a journey and life brings you new problems that you didn't know about, right? So, for example, being 52 is very different than being 25. Right? And you might say, oh, age is just a number, blah, blah, blah. Okay. But if your body goes into many pores, okay, and at 25, you don't have many pores, this is a very different experience. Right. So I think that, yes, there's some things that you could say are just a number, but there's some things that are just, facts of life that as you, go, like if you've never experienced being 60 years old, you don't know what issues that's going to bring. And it's certainly going to bring different issues than being 30 years old or 40 years old, right? If you've never experienced a bankruptcy and suddenly you have a bankruptcy, that's going to give you a different experience than, having abundance of finances and all. So you don't know what life is going to bring. That's what I'm trying to say with this. And so you're constantly having to learn and adapt to the reality, right? So in that way, I would say, if you work on grounding, inner peace, joy, love, the rest you will get opportunities to work on your sexual development, your financial development, your relationship, your spiritual relationship, your connection with others. It will be part of the daily work that you do. Yes. So you get to grow. Like, of course, it's not like, hey, I worked on myself for 5 years and that was the end of the story. That was just the beginning of me being able to, have more fun in life. have better sex with my husband because I realized the trauma of my past had caused certain things to happen inside of myself sexually that I needed to heal and transform. And you don't just snap your fingers and you heal and transform. You know, through constant daily working on yourself sexually, you grow sexually. The same way with money mindset, creating poverty in your life, creating mess financially in your life. You start to work on your mindset, you start to work on your worthiness. I'm worthy of wealth, I'm worthy of abundance, I'm deserving. So you don't self-destruct and start doing stupid stuff that pushes away opportunities. Instead of yes, I've created this opportunity for more money and I'm taking it, instead of self-sabotaging it.
Sure.
So the work goes on every single day. Life is the teacher. Yes, you're not going to fix yourself. You're not going to wake up and say, oh, I'm fixed. And that's not the point. You're whole in your soul. You're whole and not broken. So you connect to that essence of wholeness. And then you work in a body that has issues. Yeah, because that's called being human. And as you are willing to every single day say, what's the main thing that I'm working on right now? So there's been times where, as I said, I've worked on my finances, I've worked on my sexuality. Right now I'm working on my legacy. I'm working on, I'm 52 years old. By the time I'm 55, I want to have even more clarity about how the Mahima Mindset and the Own Your Superstar trainings operate inside of the post-COVID era, right? Because I believe that there's a pre-COVID world and there's a post-COVID world. And a lot of businesses need to re-establish themselves post-COVID. How do they stay relevant? How do they function in this new world that is post-COVID?
That's amazing. So lots to unpack there. And what I take from that mainly is really start with some sort of daily practice, meditation or something, and working on yourself in one particular area. You can't turn yourself 360 or 180. I guess 360 would be the same place. 180. In a finger snap, right? So it's constant work. I love what you said, where life is the teacher as well. And yeah, a whole bunch of different things where, but take it one step at a time. Money, sexuality, career progress, purpose, whatever it is, just take a few minutes on a daily basis and contemplate, be with yourself, connect with the essence. I heard a little bit of that, and kind of invest in some of that. That self-care time throughout would be super important.
I think the most important thing for people to recognize is it's not about trying to fix yourself. It's about living in the present moment with who you are and what you are right now, right? That is the real wisdom. It's not, hey, there's something wrong with me. Oh, I can't make love. My money is like, you need to take the focus off of those things. Those are not important things.
Right.
What's important is who you are in your essence. What's important is to be able to smile, to relax, to breathe, to feel a sense of freedom. Your spiritual self. That's what's important. Your essence. Now, we know people with great money, miserable. We know people claim that they have great sex, miserable. So it's not about that. It's not about trying to find the money, it's about trying to find happiness without any of that. Right? So I'm happy because I'm alive. Yeah. That's the real happiness. And then you get to play. You get to play with money. You get to play with sex. You get to play with your job. But it's not about the job. When I get the job, I'm going to be so happy. No, you're going to be as miserable as you ever were. Because what you need to learn is how to be happy. That's what is everybody. That's what the education people should invest in. Should. I hate the word should. Scrap it. That's what people need to be investing in. Yeah. Not how to get more educated so that they can get better jobs and more money. None of that's going to give you what you're looking for. What you're really
Yeah,
looking for is to feel joyful, peaceful, and happy now, today,
for
right?
sure.
And that is found inside the essence of your own heart. That is not found in the fulfillment of getting what you want from the external environment. Everything that happens externally brings a host of other problems with it. Okay.
Yeah,
So you didn't have a lot of money. Now you have more money. It brings its issues. It's lovely to have more
right.
money, but now you have the fear of losing the money. You have the fear of
Yeah,
people trying to rip you off. It brings you other issues.
yeah. For
Yeah.
sure. I think
Yeah.
again that's amazing. So what I took from that is I love quote, or it reminds me of quote where it says, "For there's nothing good or bad, and thinking makes it so." I think that's from Hamlet Shakespeare, but it's what you just said, where having lots of money, having not enough money has good or bad. Whatever you're in has good or bad. It's really up to you to figure out what do you want to focus on, what is it that you've acknowledged in your internal essence that you want to kind of bring out in the world as a result of whatever is happening, because that's less
Exactly.
important. And wondering if one day in the future, maybe as part of your legacy, all that gets incorporated into the education system, so that when someone who's like 10 or 14 or whatever can even learn that, because I think that's lacking in the world where as you said at the beginning, a lot of folks are in the sausage factory trying to be
Yes.
ground up and made to look exactly the same as everybody else, that sort of thing.
Exactly.
So yeah, a lot of things to unpack and words of wisdom there. And I'd love if, as we start to close off the episode, if you can share one or two pieces of SWIKE, the stuff I wish I knew earlier. I know you've already shared a bunch of it based on your journey, but if there are one or two tidbits that you might not have shared or want to kind of emphasize on,
Yes.
what is some SWIKE that you'd have for young Mahima or younger Mahima, because you're still young, still have
Yes.
plenty of time to do stuff. What would you want to share with young Mahima out there?
I think there's two things. One is like stay independent
Hmm.
completely.
Okay.
Don't get dependent on any person, any job, any man, don't be desperate to have something in your like stay independent. Stay with yourself. That's the only thing that is guaranteed in this world.
Hmm.
The relationship with you, right? Create financial freedom
Hmm.
for yourself in an independent way, right?
Okay.
So I wish someone had taught me that. I wish, specifically being a woman, I feel like it's something
Hmm.
that we really need to wake up to. So many women have had horrible situations happening to them because they abandoned their financial freedom. Yeah.
Hmm.
And, could be because a child, a marriage, a this or that, whatever. Right. So that would be what the things, I wish I'd sooner really understood. Never become financially or spiritually or in any way dependent on anybody, any place or thing. Stay in your independence. It's the most wonderful gift. Enjoy your body when you're young.
Hmm.
Enjoy your
Okay.
body, right? Like enjoy every bit of the energy, the look, the feel. I wish I'd had more time enjoying my body than, feeling like, "Oh, I wish I was thinner. Oh, I wish I was more beautiful." I was so
Yeah.
beautiful. I was so thin. I was so like, what I mean? Like, I wish I'd just been able to enjoy it, right? Because I know that caused me, and I know causes a lot of women a lot of stress. Yeah,
Hmm.
not feeling, thin enough, beautiful enough, and all of that. So, I would say, and yeah, so, and I guess the last one just would be then three things: is stay in the power of the now. Don't live
Hmm.
in the past. Don't live in the future. Be
Yeah.
present and understand you came into this world with nothing. You're going to leave with nothing, right?
Yeah.
So independence, stay independent financially, spiritually, emotionally. You're enough. You're complete. Everything else is a bonus and a celebration. Enjoy your body. Live in, and enjoy every bit of your beauty and health and everything that you have. And the last one is stay present in the moment. Nothing else matters. Nothing else matters. Yeah. You only have here and now, and make the most of each day like a precious gift that is, because you can never get time back. Time is the
Sure.
the most powerful commodity that you have. So don't
Sure.
waste it on feeling miserable, criticizing, judging, being scared. No, use your time in bliss, peace, pleasure, healthy pleasure, healthy joy, yeah, and
Right.
blissfulness.
That's amazing. All amazing pearls of wisdom, like two items and a bonus, which is great. And hopefully someone will turn that into a curriculum and share that with the younger folks, which I'm sure you will or have. And I'd love if you share a little bit about where can folks connect with you, find out more about you. And I think you have a course or some other things that folks can take a look at. So if you want to share a little
Absolutely. If
bit of that.
somebody's been listening to this thinking, how can I get involved, Mahima? I have a free membership that gives you access to 3 amazing products. One is my international best-selling book. You can get that. And it has 3 steps to how to be more peaceful in your day-to-day life. And then I have 7 days reprogram your mind. The reason that we are in misery and suffering is because we haven't had a mind shift perspective. My 7 days reprogram your mind can give you a change of perspective that's going to allow you to feel more joy, more peace, more happiness. And then the last product that you're going to get in this free membership is my 21-day meditation challenge, giving yourself 10 to 15 minutes a day to just be still and listen, connect to your soul, and let go of negativity. So that is 3 gifts, and you can just go to the mahimamindset.com, the THE, Mahima, MAHIMA, mindset.com, and you can get it over there. Or maybe you'll share the link over here in the chat. That would be also cool.
Of course, yeah. We'll definitely include all of that information in the show notes. And we're looking forward to hearing more about the legacy as you start developing it and crystallizing it. And thanks so much, Mahima, for sharing your story, your energy, and a lot of the wisdom out there. And hopefully we'll have you back for a future episode.
I would love that. Thank you for having me on the show. It's been such a pleasure, and I love what you're doing. Keep doing this beautiful work in the world. The world needs brilliance, it needs light, it needs love, and you're definitely bringing that. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Mahima. Take care, and hopefully we have you back. Take care.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks for joining us on the SIWIKE Stuff I Wish I Knew Earlier, the podcast. If you like the podcast, please subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you found this podcast. And if you can give us a review, that would be very appreciated. Feel free to contact me on LinkedIn at Lukidanu, Lukidanu, and the same on most social media platforms. And I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks. Bye.